The mating season in the wild tends to be very brutal. Males competing for a female will do anything just to be the first to attract her attention. The winner gets to continue the species. However, there are such occasions where there is no winner. Today's story is about both males losing the fight for the female, even though one was clearly the winner. How is this possible? Watch the entire video to find out. This story took place in Michigan at the height of the mating season in the animal kingdom. 3 young men, experienced hunters, used to go out into the forest at this time to hunt small game like partridges. They knew these places well, and over the years they learned exactly what to expect from the local inhabitants. But on this day, something unexpected happened that the friends remembered for many years after that. The morning sun was already hot through the dense thickets of trees. The men joked merrily and recalled stories from the past. When they were nearing their destination, they came upon a clearing where a battle had apparently taken place. The branches around were broken, there were tufts of wool everywhere, and red footprints were visible on the grass. At first, the hunters were not very surprised because during the mating season, fights between males were a common occurrence. However, there was something wrong with this particular scene. The traces of the fight did not end here, but clearly led further. The men knew that in the direction where the traces of the struggle led, there was a small lake. The blood stains were fresh, so the friends decided just in case to check if one of the affected animals needed help, so they followed the trail. When they came to the lake, they did not immediately understand what kind of creature was floundering in the water. From afar, it appeared that this strange creature had no head, but only legs on all sides. It jumped and kicked in the shallow water. There was clearly something wrong with it. Before, they had never seen such a creature in these places, therefore, having loaded their guns just in case, they began to slowly approach the unknown animal. When they came closer, it became clear what was in front of them. It was a large deer, or rather 2 deer, whose antlers had become entangled with each other. They jumped in the water, but all attempts to disengage their horns were in vain. The friends began to slowly surround the deer, driving them back onto land. They decided to help the poor animals. But as they got closer, they froze in amazement. It turned out that one of the deer was already dead, and his rival was desperately dragging his carcass on his horns and could not escape. It was evident that the deer was exhausted, but still strong enough to fight back the people. When the friends finally managed to knock him to the ground, they quickly tied his legs with straps and tried to unfasten the horns themselves, but the horns were so intertwined with each other that it was simply impossible to do this. So then 2 friends remained to guard the deer, and the 3rd ran to seek help. Fortunately, local forest rangers worked not far from this place. The 3rd hunter ran towards the sounds of a chainsaw. With some difficulty, he found the workmen and in a hurry began to tell them about the deer, his dead rival, and the antlers. The foresters did not immediately understand what this strange man was trying to tell them so urgently. At first, they did not believe him, thinking that he was playing a prank. But seeing his worried face, they decided to go and check. When they came upon the scene, they could not believe their eyes. A bound deer was indeed lying on the shore, and the body of a dead deer was attached to its antlers. So in a matter of seconds, they sawed off the deer's horns to the very root, thereby finally freeing it from its heavy burden. The men quickly untied the ropes, and the deer leaped 2 meters away from the people, then hastily disappeared into the forest thicket. The men decided not to leave the carcass of the 2nd deer on the shore, but to bury it under a tree. They did not want to leave the body of the defeated deer to predators. When they were finished, the men decided to go home. After what happened that day, they were no longer interested in hunting. A year has passed since then. One of the men, who lived at the very edge of the forest, once saw a deer with young, barely grown horns near his property. He immediately recognized the deer they saved last year. The deer came close to the man's home, but then quickly disappeared from his view. The next day, he appeared outside the man's house again. The man's little son was simply delighted, for it was the first time he saw this beautiful and graceful animal so close up. The boy's father began to feed his new friend, and even built a special feeder for him not far from his house. The deer came to them so often that he became completely tame. The locals were sure that in this way the deer came to express gratitude for its salvation. After all, animals understand everything and will find an opportunity to thank their saviors. Let's do good deeds more often, extending a helping hand to those who really need it. And goodness will always find those who radiate goodness and are open to this world.